Um, what is your research process like?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Well, I always say Wikipedia is a great place to start. And then I tend to like to find people's blogs, and I mean not just anybody's blog, but somebody who's like an author who either writes fiction or nonfiction on the topic. So just for instance, when I was researching my latest book, Whisper, which takes place it's like roughly based on the Victorian era. So I found, and I need, there's a whole scene where they're ice skating, and I needed to find out like what were ice skating? Did they have ice skating rinks? What were they like back then? When were they invented? What did people wear when they went ice skating? All those kinds of things. And I found this like wonderful blog of this woman who like researches the Victorian era, and she had like pictures and diagrams and all these write-ups. And so I printed it out and like highlighted all the relevant information. And then I also like to order books. The Eyewitness Kids or the Discovery Kids books are really
Okay, yeah.
great handbooks for like researching an era, because they're very simple. They don't give you too long of like explanations. It's just like what you need to know, and they have pictures. So if you can look at it, and then as a writer you can describe it. So it's a combination between like blogs, collecting stuff from books, or I'll look on Amazon and I'll see like, okay, what is like the go-to book? The Writer's Digest books are really excellent. I have a bunch of them on my shelf. Everyday Life in Colonial America, Everyday Life in Regency England. They're out of print, but you can get them used on Amazon. So I'll probably get like 2 or 3 books. One of them like a kid's book with lots of pictures, and then like maybe 2 more like adult books, and especially the ones that are specifically geared towards writers are the best, because they know exactly what you need to know as a writer, like what the different articles of clothing were called and what they would eat, and what are the jobs of like a poor person and the jobs of a wealthy person, and like all that kind of thing. And then kind of sometimes supplementing with Wikipedia, also even like recipe blogs and things like that. And so it's a combination, and I take notes out of the books that I read, and I sort them in the binder, and I have my binder divided with tabs by like setting, what's the word, like clothing and fashion of the era, food or cuisine, all that kind of thing. I have like different tabs, and I sort it all in the binder, and then I keep the binder on my desk. So while I'm writing, it's always right there for me to reference, and I don't have to necessarily Google something fresh every time I run into a question.
Yeah, I have a hard time with research, so I just don't even do it
Is that why you
unless I
stick to
really
fantasy?
unless I really need to, but
With fantasy too, though, do you find like sometimes having to make up um, your like draw up your own maps and make up your own country names, and sometimes it can be just as much work?
yeah, it's a little bit difficult, but it's my I look on Pinterest for a lot of my
A
like
lot of authors do that.
inspiration,
Yeah.
and that kind of helps me, like, even though I'm horrible at describing things, and I know I'm horrible at describing things, um I kind of like when I write it, which I describe it in like a very like small way. I don't like make it like a I'm not a world builder type. I
Okay.
um
Although I would say, having, read and edited a lot of your stuff, like you're actually a very good natural world builder, because you
oh,
you drip
thanks.
it you drip it in seamlessly, so it doesn't you're not like, all right, hold up, let's stop the story so I can give you exposition. Like, you don't do that, and that's a cardinal sin of a lot of like fantasy writers. So I always thought like, wow, she's really good at this. Like, she just gives you like what you need to know as it comes in, and she moves the story and the dialogue and the characters along. I've always admired you for that. So I think you're
Thanks.
better at it than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah, I probably am, but
Yeah.
my thing is I've read a lot of books where authors just drag out the worlds, and it's like a lot of the times it's not needed.
Mm-hmm.
Think too, I've read a lot of books, like the Harry Potter series are a big part of my life. And I think that because they're so seamlessly done,
Mhm.
and you see the world that it's in, but it's more elaborate in the movies than in the books.
Mhm.
Because I feel like the Harry Potter series is basically based on the characters and their
Yes.
relationship and their friendship and
Yep.
everything and their love life.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of where I got that from
Mhm.
because I grew up with it. That was like my life was Harry Potter.
Exactly.
So
Same. Same. We're of that same demographic. Exactly. And that is one of the things about Harry Potter that it's almost like, the magic and the setting is just a backdrop. It's just to give context, but it was really about the characters and the relationships.
yeah. Um, do you find it more challenging to write the first book or the last book of the series?
That's a really good question. Um, I would say like any book after the first book is going to be harder because with the first book you're like making introductions and you're getting to set up this whole new thing, and it's kind of easier to write an original story when you have to take the characters on a continuation of their journey and keep it fresh, like especially if the first book was just two characters falling in love and the conflict was that something was keeping them apart, or it just took them the whole book to realize they're in love. How do you make it fresh and exciting to see them again as a couple in the second and the third book? How do you, like, without putting in some dumb conflict that doesn't need to be there, like how do you make it original and convincing and satisfying for the reader? And so I did find that challenging, which is why technically I have only ever written one series, or trilogy where it uses the same characters, like it's a continuation of the same story, and that would be my Jordania trilogy, like the first three books, the Duchess Quest, the Duchess Inheritance, and the Duchess Revival. And after that, like, because any of the other books in the series, it goes like from the next generation, it's like new sets of characters, there's spin-off books with new characters. So I definitely find it easier to just write, a first book every time than to continue.
Yeah, because like these, which I have right here,
Yes.
these are two different characters in each
Yes.
book.
Yes.
This one is Abigail, right?
Yep.
Getting that right? And this one is.
M.
I didn't test my knowledge.
M.
Who?
M. Emmeline.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I don't know why I couldn't remember that, but I have them. I actually have all your books right here.
Aw.
um, do you have a favorite author that you most admire in your genre of writing?
Oh, I have like too many to name. Ironically, a lot of my favorite authors in like the YA retelling genre are like their books are like out of print, or they got dropped from their publishers, or they just never got that popular. And I don't know why that is. Um, maybe I'm just, into what's not super popular. I'm just into something really nichey, I guess. But I do have a lot of admiration for an author named Lisa Klein. She does Shakespeare retellings, like from the girl's point of view. And so
Okay.
like she has Lady Macbeth's daughter, Ophelia, and then she also has one about the Lost Colony, the one in Virginia, and now I'm gonna make a mistake here. I want to say it wasn't there like a Virginia Roanoke colony that nobody knows what happened to the people? They just all disappeared. They think that they went to go live with the Native Americans or something, but she wrote a whole novel of it called Kate of the Lost Colony, and I love that book. But anyway, so Lisa Klein is one who like really kills it with her retellings, and they actually made a movie of Ophelia. I have not seen it yet, but it's told from the point of view of Ophelia from Hamlet, and instead of her killing herself, it's a whole different ending. So
Yeah,
really good.
I've heard of it. I've actually never seen it though, so I have heard of it.
The book is really good.
Is it?
I wish I still had it. I had, when we moved, I donated all my books to the library, and I'm just only digital now. I only kept like my most sentimental, books like from my dad and things. But yeah, I really admire Lisa Klein. But I mean, I have tremendous respect for all of those YA retelling people who inspired me: Heather Dixon, Emily Whitman. Um, and there's probably 50 more. I mean, even Jessica Day George, as I mentioned, Shannon Hale. Um, yeah, I have a lot of respect for those authors. I like what they
Yeah,
do.
I'm actually still, it's funny because you sent me this a long time ago, but I'm still reading Entwined.
Yeah, by Heather Dixon. That
Yeah,
one
I'm
that one
still,
inspired my the one I just finished, Whisper. That's like such a huge inspiration for that book.
okay, yeah, I'm still reading it.
That's
I have like
okay.
5 of the books that I'm reading too, so I'm just like, well, I'll eventually finish it. So,
And for people who don't know, Entwined by Heather Dixon is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. And that's another
yes.
Grimm fairy tale. And it's just so charmingly, the voice is so charming. And there's even this whole subplot with she, has this very like cold and aloof father. And then throughout the book, like she and her father start to like make amends. And it's like the characters are so three-dimensional, and I love that. And it also, even elements of that book also inspired elements of my novella, The Golden Dove. So I was so inspired by that book.